just in time. My beautiful wife is going to deliver me some tea. Because my brother... Thank you, darling. She's not on camera. Look at that. Invisible women deliver... She's real. I really do have a wife. This is not my parents' basement. Archanima67 says, the recommended videos that pop up under this stream start with a video on spam and another on 10 signs that you may be a psychopath. I wonder what other D2G subscribers are watching. Tropical Trail Mix is ready. Hey guys, how you doing? Nancy, Leaf, Jason D. Hey, nice to see you here, man. Archanima, of course. Steve Mulder. All right, so I actually wrote a song called "Come on, Girl, Bring Me a Sandwich" that I did for this radio show I used to be on. Oh, I had such a dark past life before you guys dragged me up and out of it into a better world. Unbelievable. Oh, Carolyn, nice to see you. Carolyn is here, and that brings me to the first announcement of the evening. I'm going to answer a few questions here in a minute, but I wanted to tell you guys we have added a second workshop while I am in Florida. There's going to be a second workshop, and it is going to take place in Gainesville, and I put a link below. It will take place in Gainesville on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., March 19th. There's a link below this video where you could sign up for the North Florida. We're going to do a North Florida gardening workshop, and Carolyn has volunteered her homestead, and we are going to do a workshop there, and it's going to cost a little bit less than the South Florida workshop. I'm not going to do as like a super in-depth thing, but I have a lot of friends and fellow gardeners up there, so if you wanted to meet up with me 5 hours north, if that's easier for you, just north of Gainesville, Tuesday the 19th, 5:30 p.m. In the link, you can sign up and let us know. The only stipulation is Carolyn is hosting this for free, so we don't have any overhead on the location, which is great. However, everybody has to bring her a plant, some good cuttings, or some seeds. That's the thing that has to happen if you show up at Carolyn's house. So that's important. It's $25 per person. We will do a workshop, and this workshop will hopefully, Lord willing, pay for a new camera so I can do some better work. So if anybody wants to come and meet up with me in North Florida on the 19th, and don't forget, I will be in Fort Lauderdale on the 16th, and there's a link to that as well. If anybody's closer to South Florida, come on. So let's see. I'm going to answer a few questions, and then we're going to jump into what we're doing. Let's see here. There was a Home Depot question here. Where is that Home Depot question? Jason D says, I was thinking about buying several fruit trees from Home Depot. Do you think there is a difference in quality versus buying from someplace else? No, usually Home Depot and Lowe's both have high quality plants. The downside with buying from them is that they work with gigantic wholesale nurseries, so you're not going to support your local nursery owner. You will support a large one. The other downside for buying from them is that sometimes the varieties are not well suited to the climate. They will stock stores across a broad range with some stuff that may or may not be great for where you are. So you get a variety of peach. A local nursery would be able to tell you which ones really do well in the area. The one that you get from there may not. Like for example, I was up in the center of Florida, and I saw coconut palms for sale at a Home Depot, and I thought, The people that buy these coconut palms up here and plant them are going to be sorely disappointed when their coconut palms freeze to death about probably the first or second winter that they're out there. So that's kind of sad. And I have seen, varieties of apples that are not particularly suitable and that sort of thing. But if you know what you're doing, their prices are good. They usually take very good care. They have a very good system for taking care of stuff. They know what they're doing, generally the way they set the systems up. Now, the people that work the nursery area may or may not be excellent. There was a really excellent lady in Smyrna, Tennessee, working at the Lowe's, who really knew all of her stuff, and she'd been there for a long time. Then she retired, and she was replaced by somebody that did not. So that's my 2 cents on that. And how often do I make it up to Washington? I have made it up to Washington once in my life when I was 15. It's beautiful. But I don't have any plans to get there anytime soon. So Harold says, I'm having deja vu. I thought I watched this stream last night. That's weird. Maybe the, I don't know why. Derek says, not to mention big box stores treat stuff with nasty chemicals. That may be something I haven't given much thought to, but you may be right. Steve says, do trees wake up from dormancy based on air temperature or soil temperature? I'm not sure. They seem to count warm days. It seems to be more the warmth of the air from... see, the thing is that soil is usually warmer than the air, at least in Florida. Like if you dig down into the soil, it can be 72 degrees down in the ground, and it can be 25 degrees above. So I'm guessing that a lot of their cold is being counted above. Otherwise, they would never get any chill hours. So that would just be my deduction, and that's not scientific. L.O. Vigors said, my cat killed a pigeon today. I threw it in the compost. You win. Good work. You are officially a good gardener. There shouldn't be the same title. Did I not? Oh, I see what I did. Just a second. Let me see if I can do this. Pushing the zone. I forgot to change it. I changed the overview. Let's see if it's going to save. Your changes are being saved. See if it changes. That's so funny. I forgot to change the title of this stream. Everybody's living in a dream. A deja vu dream. But now it's fixed. So hopefully we're on episode 25. I can't believe I'm changing the title while I am live. Ha ha ha, very good. All right, so let us jump into this evening's fun. That is so funny. I changed the... This is what I went for a walk. I'm like, I am so tired. It took me a long time to get this whole, the food forest, the North Florida Gardening Workshop set up and create the link. And I spent all day trying to schedule my trip because there's many things I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the Broward County Rare Fruit Council meeting. I'm going to try and hit Echo in Fort Myers. I'm going to be visiting with people and interviewing them on various things. I've got a ton of stuff that I lined up, and I'm like, I got to fit all this in, and I've also got to line up transportation. So, oh yeah. Fortunately, I have some really good friends and acquaintances still there that are setting me up, like Carolyn agreeing to host, and then my mom agreeing to host the South Florida workshop. One of my sisters was like, Dave, you're selling tickets to Mom's backyard? Really? Yeah, no, it's a food forest. It's not just Mom's backyard. I mean, profit is without honor. C6903, best veggies to plant in New York City area. Oh man, you in New York. So my family years and years ago was from upstate New York. Part of my family was. The Goodman side was from Pennsylvania. But upstate New York, I remember my great-grandfather growing the most beautiful sunflowers, beets, carrots, raspberries, blackberries, there you can grow, if it's a cold climate, temperate vegetable, like you can grow amazing kale, you can grow excellent cabbages, you can grow, if it's coming from Central to Northern Europe, you can probably grow it really well. And there are some things that are originally tropical in origin that do very well there. Like, you'll probably have better luck with tomatoes there than I have with tomatoes here. But just know, no matter where you are, cherry tomatoes seem to be the easiest to grow. So I would also see if you could visit some local gardens. If you know anybody that's doing gardening in your area, or you could visit and stop by, the best information you can get is from a gardener a block away. And you go and say, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are the easiest things to grow that you grow here? What varieties do you recommend?" If you could find any retirees that are gardening, or any young urban farmers or whatever that are doing stuff, they have so much knowledge that's just specific exactly to your area. I can give you a general climate area, but not having farmed in New York City, I can't say for sure I know what the climate's like. But other than that, find a local gardeners, join a local gardening group. You'll find tons of information. Just be ready to take notes, ask questions. Just listen. You'll find all kinds of stuff. So, all right. So let me see. Let us jump in. I wrote this book 2 years ago, and it is probably my worst selling book. Other than, I'm not sure how Jack Broccoli ranks up. Jack Broccoli, Turned Earth, a Jack Broccoli novel. I'm going to make it sad here. Turned Earth, a Jack Broccoli novel, is one of the most beautiful things I ever wrote in my life, but people don't necessarily understand that a novel by a garden writer can be something beautiful, can be something powerful, can be something that just transcends the normal milieu that we find ourselves in the gardening world. And that milieu is called normalcy. And the book transcended normalcy, which doesn't necessarily make it a good choice in our capitalistic world. But it was a choice of the heart. It was a choice to break out, to make something new, to make something different, to make something powerful. And that's what I did. And I'm so proud of it, and I would never change. All right, so Jack Broccoli was like, probably not my bestseller. Push the Zone, not a bestseller. Now, there are different reasons for that, like I just said in a dramatic fashion. Jack Broccoli is a novel written by a garden writer, so obviously you're kind of behind the curve there. It's sort of like, really, can he actually write a novel? The answer is yes, he can. But it doesn't necessarily transfer over to a large audience, and it's a satirical comedic novel. It's not a how-to, and a lot of people that like how-tos, they want to learn how to do something. They don't want to write. They don't want to read something silly and entertaining. They want to say, what can I take right now and use in my garden? Now, the reason Push the Zone is not a huge bestseller, I actually went back and forth with my publisher on this one, because I was working on this book, and I almost did not publish it not because I didn't think it was a good idea, but because I thought that it may be too tight to my experiences solely in North Florida and some experiences in Tennessee. Most of the experimentation I did for this book was in a place that doesn't have very harsh winters. It's not like it's like 12 below in Minneapolis right now. That was outside of my experience, and so I said a lot of my work has been in North Florida, and the publisher said, that's all right, carry over what you can, and don't carry over. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, some people may be like, okay, I don't know about that. I live in Canada. Is this book going to be useful to me? So I worked with it, I played with it. It still has a, North Florida, right? We get get down to 15 degrees every once in a while, 20 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold by North Florida standards, but it's usually short frost events that go for a few hours, not a week of 0 degree temperatures. So it's a big deal, for some areas. The winter's a big deal, and so when I'm like, oh, put a sheet over your orange tree, Raven says it's 8 degrees right now, or she is. Okay, so that is not good. They're just gonna be like, yeah, I'll put a sheet over my orange. I want my money back. So that's kind of like, it doesn't reach over. But what I did is I tried to put as much research as possible into how can you raise. Let's not say you can't necessarily grow. You can't grow coffee outside in New York as much as I wish you could. As much as I wish there was some magic to it, it's not going to happen. But you can push things out of their normal zone. And as I did further research and reading outside of it, you'll find that the book has more quotes in it from experts than some of my other books do, because a lot of the other books were based all on first-hand experience. This one has a lot of first-hand experience in it. Some dreaming, some experimenting, some potential ideas, some like flights of fancy of what if you could breed a plant like this, and what if you could do this, and what if you tried this, This book is much more for experimenters than it is for people who just want to learn how to compost and get a bunch of stuff. This is for hardcore gardeners, people who really want to experiment, and people who can look past the fact that it was written in North Florida, so it'll apply strongly to the southern United States, not so well to the northern United States, and they can take some of the concepts and apply them farther north. And there are people doing things, and I write about things that people have done up north, but they're not my personal experience. So the book had a couple of things against it. It's a niche. It's based in North Florida climate, and so some people say it's just not applicable. And I understood that, but my publisher said, do it anyway. And so I did it anyway. And that's that's why the book has something like 35 reviews. It sold hundreds of copies. But it has like 35 reviews compared to Compost Everything, which is over 100 reviews. You can see the relative interest on it. So, if you want to experiment and you want to push, that's what I wrote the book for. So, let me show you. This is the table of contents. Now, my wife is like, don't give away everything. Don't give away the whole book. Nobody will buy it. I'm like, well, people aren't really buying a ton of copies anyways. And besides, most of the people that, most of the people that watch me, you could get most of the information on what I've written just from videos. You just have to watch 13 days worth of videos to soak up what I put in one of my books. Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that pop? Bauhinia purpurea. This is a... I have this. This is an orchid tree pod that I put on my desk. When they hit a certain level of humidity, they explode when it drops to a certain level. So that's what just happened. Man, it's the electric again. Pop! No, I just had a Bauhinia purpurea pod explode on the desk right in front of me. Man, living the life, man. Hashtag so authentic. So... Where was I? Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna give you the overview. This is a table of contents, and we're gonna talk through some of these things right now. So if you don't buy the book, you can go ahead and apply it, and if you buy the book, that's great. But you don't have to buy the book. It's not like it's gonna make a huge amount of difference. This is not a bestseller, but it's for you guys. I mean, you guys are the hardcore guys that are watching this stream, anyways. So. First of all, I want to tell you that I was very thrilled that Dr. David Franco wrote the foreword. His name may not mean a lot to many people, but... Oh, where is it? Oh, I don't have the book. I don't have the book behind me right now. I thought I had it in the little bookshelf. Must be on the other one. His book, Palms Won't Grow Here and Other Myths, was recommended by Eric Tonesmeyer in one of his books. And it's based on growing ornamental and landscape trees and landscape plants outside of their natural range, and he's experimented a lot with it. Well, he wrote that book back in the 90s, and I looked him up, and he was just retiring from a teaching position, and I wrote him an email, and I said, Dr. Franco, I greatly enjoyed your book. I'm working on this book called Push the Zone. Would you write a foreword for me? And he said, whoa, how wonderful. Yes. So I got to recommend his book again, and he wrote this beautiful foreword for my book. But it was really cool because it was an author that I had read, and now here I am, an author myself, and I can connect with an author that did some great work over 20 years ago when he wrote that book, and I can kind of carry the torch. Like, Dr. Franco, I want to, I'm going to plug your book. I'm going to carry it forwards. I quote it in my book. Would you just read and give me some ideas? So he read it. He said, this is a great book. This is quite enjoyable. Here. And he wrote me this nice foreword. So anyhow, yeah. I just wanted to say that because Dr. Franco was cool, and his book Palms Won't Grow Here and Other Myths is very good for those of you who are interested in doing like tropical landscaping up north. It's very cool. So in chapter 1, I do what I do in a lot of my books. I do the 22 reasons to push the zone. I give you ideas and reasons why you might want to do this crazy stuff. And then let's talk about greenhouses next. I cover both buying a greenhouse, should you buy a greenhouse, and how to make your greenhouse work for you. Now, I am like totally into the lowest infrastructure possible to get the returns. I don't like to buy stuff. I don't like to deal with gadgets. I tend to break things. I'm just prone to avoiding complicated technology as much as possible, and I don't like to garden much with a roaring tiller kicking out exhaust and bouncing over rocks and jarring my arms. There are times for it, but it's not my favorite. Like, I would rather just work with my hands most of the time and work with the soil and do things as simple as possible. So a greenhouse for me was something I had always thought, I kind of like the idea of a greenhouse, but I don't want to build one with the plate glass and thinking like a Victorian greenhouse. Grand Old Opry Land in Nashville. I worked backstage at the Country Music Awards and the Dove Awards, the Country Music Television Awards. I was actually like setting up stages at one point in a previous life, and I actually met Brad Paisley, and I didn't know it was Brad Paisley because I wasn't up on my country music. And I'll tell you that story at some point. But they have a big greenhouse area with a bunch of palms in it, and they've got little like rivers running through it with boats that go around. It's incredible. And so they've got all these tropical plants growing there, and it kills me because they're like all ornamentals. I'm like, why don't you have a jackfruit tree in here? Or a mango tree. How cool would that be? But they don't do it that way. Like, nobody thinks that way. They're like, it's all about the looks instead of the functionality. So just the you just think how much they could probably produce all the fresh food for the Old Hickory Steakhouse right there inside if they weren't doing it all ornamentals. But anyhow, it's a beautiful, awesome greenhouse. But when I was thinking of greenhouses, I was thinking about how complicated it was, and then I was like, well, I could build a frame and put plastic on it. But I don't know if I really want to deal with that, and I don't know where you get greenhouse plastic, and maybe it's going to blow away and all that stuff. And I ended up just giving in and finally buying a kit greenhouse because there was some stuff I wanted to carry through the winter. I was starting to get more tropical plants, and I was afraid of them dying, and I wanted to propagate some stuff from South Florida that I could bring down to the South Florida Food Forest Project. I'd bring stuff up, I'd propagate it, I'd bring it back down again, plant it out. And so I paid like $500 for this kit greenhouse. They're up to like 600 and something now. It was the Spring Gardener greenhouse kit, and apparently they've changed the design since then, and it falls apart quickly now. But back then, it had a pretty thick plastic with some embedded stuff in it, and it zipped down the front and the back, and it was kind of like one of those outdoor carport type of things with with plastic over it. So I finally got one of those, and I laid down the woven fabric on the bottom, and I set it all up, and I put all my plants in it. And we got this windstorm, and I did not sink it into the ground like I should have. I figured it had enough weight on it. I was totally wrong. It blew sideways, and I had some of the bars bend in it. It knocked plants everywhere. I was out like with my wife in a windstorm trying to open the greenhouse up and unroll it fast enough so it didn't blow all the plants over sideways and wreck everything that I had. So I sunk some posts into the ground. I'm like, here I go again, doing high-tech stuff. So I used a post hole digger, I dug some holes, poured some concrete in, stuck some pieces of rebar, and then I used hose clamps, and I lashed the hose clamps to the poles that held the greenhouse up, and I never had any more trouble. But what I found out with the greenhouse is that, yes, it does cover plants. If you have the thin plastic, it will keep stuff from freezing. But during the day, if you don't remember to open it, you can roast your plants. Like, it'll soar over 100 degrees really quickly, and it turns into basically a solar oven. It's called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect. Like polar bears would die in there, you know? So I found that it would get way too hot during the day, and then at night it would get freezing outside, and sometimes it would just drop right below freezing inside the greenhouse. There's some protection, but it wasn't enough. So I was doing some reading on thermal mass, and I was thinking, oh man, do I have to put a heater in here? First I was thinking a heater, or run some Christmas lights in there or whatever. And then I was doing some more reading on thermal mass, probably on Permies.com, or yeah, it was probably Permies.com. Paul's got all kinds of cool stuff up there. So, you know, I was reading about thermal mass and trying to keep things from freezing. And so I decided, well, water has a lot of thermal mass in it. I'm going to put barrels in it, because I saw somebody's greenhouse in Oregon or something. It was like attached to their house, and they had barrels of water that would soak up the sun during the day and heat it at night. So I bought 8 barrels from somebody. Here we go, right here. I bought 8 barrels. There's one, I think there's one just behind me. Unless I bought 6 barrels. I'm pretty sure there were 8 in there. And I filled them full of water, and I stuck them in the greenhouse. Later I put shelving on top of them too. But at this point, I just had the barrels in there. I filled them full of water, and I packed my plants in around them before the winter got cold. And I thought, okay, well, let's see how this works. And I was still opening the greenhouse during the day because I was afraid it was going to get hot. But I ended up going to church one day, and this older couple that was friends of ours invited us and the children over for lunch after church. So I went over, and it got to be about 1 o'clock, and I went, oh shoot, it is hot outside. And I left my greenhouse zipped up. Now I just put the barrels in it, but I thought the plants are going to be wilting and dying in there. I've probably killed 100 plants at this point. I'm like, oh shoot. I said, I'm so sorry, we've got to go. So I raced home, and I went, I'm like, no. And I go and I unzip the greenhouse. I start rolling up the plastic, and I look at the thermometer in there, and it's in the 80s. I'm like, no way. Thermal mass works both ways. I didn't realize the moderating influence of all that water on the inside of the greenhouse. It had been, going down to freezing at night and then soaring up into the hundreds, during the day, and I thought I was going to lose everything. I went in and I went, no way. So I never even had to worry about opening or closing anymore. I cannot believe this. It actually worked. So that's what I did. All I did was those 8 barrels that I stuck in there were enough to keep it all the way through the winter from freezing, and I had frost events go down into the 20s and even into the teens once, and I had no damage inside of the greenhouse with the exception of a couple of plants that were next to a window in the greenhouse that had a little crack in it, and it was letting some cold air in, and there was some frost burn right there, but that was it. So, do you need to buy a greenhouse? Not necessarily. If you're going to do the home-based plant nursery thing, probably. It's very nice to sit out there on a chilly day and have it be a slice of the tropics, but you don't have to get really serious and expensive about it. They're nice to have. They're not a necessity. There are other ways of doing it, of frost protection that don't require that much infrastructure. here, right here, these are some of my blueberries. One cold spring day. So this thing, okay, you know how as soon as everything really looks like it's going to bloom and take off and it looks great, one more frost will come? This is the first time these blueberries really decided to bloom, and I thought, we're going to get so much fruit. And then, sure enough, it's going to go down to 25 degrees or less. We're going to lose all the blooms. It's one of those overnight frosts. So I call this friend of mine named Bill Hall, B&G Blueberries in Fort McCoy, a U-Pick blueberry place. The guy's brilliant. No, that's not frost. I'm getting to that, Jerry. So right here, I said, listen, I've got these blueberries alongside my house. I need to protect the blooms overnight. What do I do? He says, well, you know what I'm doing, buddy? I am running my sprinklers right now. We're just starting up. We're going to run those sprinklers right on through. And those sprinklers are going to run all night, and they're going to keep those blooms from falling off. He said they're just going to get covered up with ice. He says, but you keep it running right until they defrost in the morning, and those blooms are going to stay on there. I said, are you serious? It's like that works? Okay, I'll try it. So I put a sprinkler out there, and it ran on the blueberries all night, and this is what they look like in the morning. And I said, no way those blooms are going to survive. They are encased in ice. But I kept the sprinkler running. And gall darn it, don't you know those things just carried on through? Do you believe that? Gall dingy, those things went right on through. They actually set fruit. I could not believe it. There's some science to it. As I did research on it, what happens is there is a phase transition that's taking place between freezing and not freezing, ice and liquid, right? So right at that transition point, there is this little wavering that's taking place. There's this little waver that's taking place where things are not exactly quite freezing all the way they're trying to freeze, but there's actually a little heat released as it's trying to freeze or thaw, and so you can actually game this by continually putting water on it. So it's always trying to freeze and then almost not freezing. It's trying to freeze. So it's freezing, but it's staying right around 32, so it's not actually destroying the stuff inside. It is so bizarre, but it works. That is like, that's a push the zone trick for you right there. And that's what I learned from a commercial blueberry operation. So I'm going to answer a question here. Raven says, but don't blueberries love cold? Yes, the blueberries don't mind the cold. The problem is that the blueberries are adapted to go through the cold in a state of dormancy. So right now in Florida, North Florida is going through a very close to frost event. It may frost. Everything is in bloom or fruit because it's been a nice warm winter. So when they've got new leaves on them, those leaves are not set. They are not ready. When a tree drops its leaves in the fall, it basically puts antifreeze compounds into the inside of it. It goes to sleep, it drops all the leaves so there's no place to get damaged, and it draws a lot of the sap down into the roots. You know, you hear the sap is rising. There's a specific time that you have to tap maple trees if you want to make maple syrup. It's because the sap is down here. The sap rises, it starts pumping it back up, and it comes out. It's like the turtle comes out of his shell. When the turtle's out, his arms and legs are out, his head's out, he's in trouble. When a hermit crab is in between shells, he's in trouble. When he draws into his shell, he's safe. I mean, snails do the same thing. They'll estivate. It's too hot and dry. They draw in, they seal up the entrance to their shell, and they just ride it out. And some animals go into hibernation. It's the same kind of an idea. When they are actively growing and the sap has risen and they are blooming or fruiting and frost comes, boom, it'll destroy them. And we're talking trees that are normally very, very cold hardy will lose the blooms and the fruit. You know, apples, peaches, a lot of things will get destroyed. So that's why you have to protect those blooms. Merry Christmas 2.0 says, do you do farmers market? I used to. I used to do farmers markets. I don't anymore. Curious Life says, my cat just jumped onto one of my blueberry plants, busted it in half, propagated the broken limb. Fingers crossed. Small cuttings off of blueberries I have rooted and in rooting mix, potting mix on the windowsill in my kitchen. Put a little baggie over the top. I put them in a little pot, watered it in with some rooting hormone, covered it up, and in about 2 months they rooted. So the older, woodier stuff didn't seem to root as well as the younger stuff does. Yes, they do it. Large orange groves may do it. They also used to use smudge pots too, which is crazy. They pump the air full of smoke. They would even burn tires just to get the smoke in the air, which would act like a blanket and keep the frost from setting. So, yeah, Carolyn says, don't forget to register for the North Florida event, everyone. If anybody's going to be in North Florida, I am doing a North Florida gardening event on the 19th. Tuesday the 19th, 5:30, just north of Gainesville. There's a link below. You can sign up. Let's see. I'm gonna go a little further here. All right, I'm gonna show you something else. So that is one way that you can protect, right? So these iced blueberries, that was running the sprinkler overnight, kept the blooms from coming off. The thing still made fruit. So if you can irrigate, you can get it to not, so long as you just run the sprinkler right before it frosts, right through the frost, till after the frost, until it melts. Do not stop running that sprinkler until it's melted. It's a big waste of water, but at least you keep your fruit. Let me show you another one here. You guys have seen this before. I got a super chat here. I'll answer this. Merry Christmas 2.0 sends $2 super chat, and he says, what did you grow and what's most profitable? Zone 9A. Nursery plants were more profitable than growing produce, I found. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't make more money growing produce. There's just less handling. In nursery plants, you don't, like with lettuce, you have to get it to market in a perfect condition and get it sold. You have to have, you have to have your markets ready to go, and there's a lot of handling. With a nursery plant, you can bring it out to the market and bring it back a bunch of times over and over again. I had the most profit on perennial vegetables and fruit trees that I propagated myself. Sometimes I would buy and resell grafted trees that from people that were reputable and good, but the yields aren't nearly so well on that. But I supplied them anyways because it's all part of a big food forest thing. I did well on cassava. Actually, cassava cuttings did very well in North Florida. So let me show you here, right here. This is a loquat tree. This loquat tree, I used the barrel trick. It was, the loquats, we talked about this actually just the other night. The loquats are a cold hardy tree. They can take down into the teens without seeing damage. They're a very nice evergreen tree. They can take a lot of cold, but the fruit cannot take that much cold. I think it's 25 degrees and they lose their fruit and the blooms. The problem is not that, that 25 degrees. That wouldn't matter if they bloomed in April, but they like to bloom in like February, even if they're further north. So that is the wrong time. You always get a late frost. So in North Florida, some years you just don't get loquats. You always get them in South Florida, but some years in North Florida, you just don't get any loquat crops because there's that late frost. March 1st, boom, in comes a frost. February 29th, here's a frost. February 29th, you like that? Yeah, that's funny. So, there's a frost, and boom, you lose them. So what I did with this tree, this was a seedling tree. I wanted to see how it was going to turn out. I stuck a barrel underneath it. Now, I didn't just stick the barrel there. I stuck sheets over that section of it and covered it, and I covered the barrel at the same time. So I had one little pocket of the tree that was where the blooms were covered. The tree was too big for me to cover with a bunch. I would have to stitch a bunch of sheets together or have a parachute or something to cover the entire thing. I couldn't do it, but I really was dying to know what that fruit was going to taste like. It had blooms all over the tree, so I stuck this barrel down there. You could see here, there's the fruit. just over the barrel. In the previous picture here, the rest of the tree does not have fruit. So crazy. Right there, all the fruit was protected. And so what I did was I just threw that low-hanging branch that had blooms on it. I put a 55-gallon drum, or maybe that's a 45, full of water, covered it with some sheets, and ba-dum! I got fruit, and I knew what it tasted like. And it doesn't taste very good. But that's beside the point. It was not a very good variety. But I knew it wasn't good. And I was, oh man, I was just waiting for that stuff. I thought, I cannot believe it's going to frost right now with all of these little blooms setting. But it works. So there's a really low-tech way that you can use thermal mass. I will show you another one here. Here's another super low-tech way. Somebody sent me this picture. I recommended growing pineapples underneath oak trees after a friend of mine, a man named Craig Hepworth, who is a very, very brilliant plant guy. He's like a monk scientist. Lives on his land and is very, very intelligent and quiet and very thoughtful, and he has so much knowledge in his head. And he told me, he said, well, he showed me his greenhouse, and now his greenhouse setup was awesome because he did I write about this in Push the Zone too. He dug a pit into the ground, and then he built the greenhouse over the pit. So he had like 6 feet down into the ground, so he had the thermal mass of the ground, and then he had another 10 feet or more of growing space, which meant he had small trees growing in his greenhouse. So he actually had a jackfruit tree growing and a starfruit tree growing in North Florida, in Citra, which is, you cannot grow jackfruits there. But he had jackfruit. Really cool. Now the jackfruit was trying to push through the ceiling, so he was having trouble with that. But the starfruit was perfect tree. He had miracle fruit. He had all kinds of stuff from the tropics growing in there. But what he had done when he had first set up the greenhouse was he had planted a bunch of pineapples. He thought, I'll stick pineapples in there. And then he got really tired of weeding around the pineapples because they have these sword-like leaves that are just vicious leaves. So he's like, I am sick of getting cut by these things. The yield on pineapples isn't good enough. I'm just gonna throw them out. So he took them, and he threw them, he pulled them up out of his greenhouse, and he threw them around the base of an oak tree that was near the greenhouse, just to, like, forget it, here you go. I just piled them up. And they started growing underneath the oak tree. And then he said, much to his surprise, they went through winter after winter and fruited underneath the oak tree, way outside of pineapple's normal range. Now, you can grow pineapples in Orlando, particularly in the city. There's this heat island effect that's going on. You can grow it near the coast, but right in that, in that area, it gets colder right down the center of the state, and he was outside of the city heat zone, and he was in basically, it gets the coldest and the hottest kind of down the middle of the state where it's far from the ocean on both sides. So they're not supposed to do that. So he told me, he says, man, I've had fruit for years now from the ones I just threw underneath an oak tree. So I said, okay, I'm going to try that. So I started planting them under the oak trees in my front yard and letting the canopy cover them. So the thing is, if you read plant books or propagation guides, they'll say pineapples require full sun and a tropical climate. Hawaii is a lead producer of pineapples. But they don't tell you they will actually fruit in the shade, and they can grow underneath oak trees, and they don't need a full tropical climate. I mean, you do these experiments, right? Yeah, ideally, you have volcanic soil and perfect conditions, and you've got full sun, and you get bigger, sweeter fruit, and blah, blah, blah. But you could grow if you can grow your own pineapples in your yard, even a half-size pineapple, they come out so nice and sweet when you get them right off of the shrub. The shrub, I don't even know what it is, but you can't call it a tree. Right off the bromeliad, SPP. So one of my readers, I had written about it and I put it in a book and other things. One of my readers sent me this photo of their pineapples growing underneath an oak tree. They did it. You see the pineapples? No, they're not gigantic pineapples, but those are pineapples going underneath an oak tree where they're not supposed to grow. You're not supposed to be able to do that. And that's one of the fun things about the book Push the Zone, is it's a book about the stuff you're not allowed to do and you're not supposed to do. I gotta tell you, I had a group come through my yard. And I had some master gardeners and others, and I had some papaya growing on the back of my house, loaded with fruit. Papaya can't take anything below 32. They will just melt and die. They won't produce anything. It kills them to the ground. It's miserable. Papaya growing around the back of my house. And one of the gardeners came around the corner and she goes, "Oh, papaya. Oh, what a shame they don't grow here." And I'm like, they're growing. They're growing right there. They've got fruit all over them. What a shame those don't grow here. You gotta break out of that. You gotta say, okay, what is possible? A lot of the focus is trying to dummy-proof the garden, right? Like, don't put meat in your compost. You can't do that. Don't put too much paper in it. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Because they're kind of trying to dummy-proof it. Yeah, right. If you throw a big pile of rotten meat in your side yard, you're going to attract vultures and vermin, and it's horrible. Oh, it could be terrible, and it could stink. So in case somebody does that, let's just say don't do that, okay? Let's just say you can't compost meat because it's like stinky and it's like bad, and so we're gonna like put it on the list, and you're just not gonna do that. No, you're not. You're gonna just throw it into the middle of a pile and cover it. So a lot of the experimenting I've done is seeing here's what the conventional says, and why. Tell me why. Maybe you can't grow commercial pineapples in North Florida or in Georgia or in Virginia. You can actually even grow in Virginia. But maybe you can't grow them on a commercial scale. That doesn't mean you can't grow them. You can grow coffee in Canada. You just have to grow it in a pot indoors with proper lighting. But I saw a video with some Yankee up north talking about his coffee. He's like, "This is my coffee. I've got this coffee. I've had this coffee for all this coffee I've had for 4 years. It's right here in my apartment. I put it underneath the skylight. You look at this thing. It's got blooms all over it. It's got some cherries on it right now. Look at they say it's like a house plant, but this is like a tree. It's like the rainforest in here." And so yeah, you can do it. Oh my goodness. So it's basically what are you willing to risk? What's the fear that's holding you back from maybe pushing, maybe trying, maybe doing something that's not on the list? In the case of something dangerous, like say, I want to compost human waste, it makes sense to know what the details are. If you want to filter water, it makes sense to kind of have an idea of what goes into filtration. If you want to experiment with homeopathy by taking minute amounts of lead, you might want to look into you need to understand the risks first. But what is the risk in composting inappropriately? What happens? A rat shows up or a dog shows up and pulls the chicken leg out of your compost pile. It's not the end of the world. But if you bury it in the middle, what do you get? You get all that extra fertility. You have not thrown something in a landfill. You've done something that people say you can't do. So, what's the risk of starting an apple tree from seed? You can't do that. It's going to be bad. You're going to just spit it out. It's going to be horrible. Well, where did all our apple varieties come from? It's from people who started apples from seed. And then they find an apple that's really great, Granny Smith, right? Granny Smith peeling apples and throwing the cores outside. She got a nice seedling. She saved it. Then she passed away. A nurseryman tried the variety and said, "This is the best pie apple I have ever tried." He saved the variety. He grafted it onto orchard, and then it got named, and then it got spread around the world. Somebody saved a seedling, which you're not supposed to do. You know, I mean, it's like, what's the problem? Okay, you've got some pineapple tops. You stick pineapple tops all over your yard. You can go down to the grocery store and say, "Hey, you guys are making fruit salad. Would you save me the tops from those pineapples? Would you just save me a bag of them?" Then you go and you take them and you plant them all over your entire yard. And then the frost comes. And you lose 2/3 of them. So what? What did you lose? Lost a little bit of time. You learned something. You learned where the cold spots in your yard are, and you learned where the warm spots are. And the warmer spots then, if you have them living, maybe you could try something else in those spots. Maybe there's something else you can do. You know, there's a section in the book. There's a section in the book where I cover the peach growers in Paris. They were growing peaches in Paris for the fresh market. You know, right in Paris, they had walls that they put up for thermal mass that captured the sunlight, held the warmth. They had peaches espaliered against the walls, and they had fresh peaches outside of peaches' natural range. And they did it through experimentation. Somebody figured out that on the back wall of their house they could grow a peach, and then it became a commercial enterprise later on. I'm going to read this super chat here. I have a super chat from Raven. She says, "Hey David, I have had a very similar idea for growing tea here, a part-sunken greenhouse. It's one of my wish list plants. I don't listen to naysayers." That's right. That's why you're a good gardener. I think that we often use the excuse of reading an expert to say that we can't do it. And in my books, what I try to do is tell you what I did, what worked, what failed. I am not a commercial farmer. You could learn more about commercial farming from a commercial farmer. I am not a scientist. I am a backyard scientist. You know, I'm an experimenter. I'm a tinkerer. And so I feel like my job is to continually test what we have received from on high, because, you know, it always receives, you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. You get all this information from people and you think, oh, you know, I just can't do it. I'm just this guy. And, you know, well, who figured out the modern science of genetics? It was a monk experimenting with pea plants in his backyard, in the monastery garden, right? Mendel. You know, I mean, that sort of thing. You can try, you can test, you can experiment, and you could probably do something that nobody else has done before. If you grow an apple from a seed and you get a decent apple, you can name it after yourself. You can have Jason's apple, Dixie Living Homestead apple. You know, it could be anybody. So why would you just say, oh, I'm not going to try it? Just do it. Just do it. So I'm going to answer a few questions here. Ecocentric Homestead said, apparently I can grow figs in my unheated sunroom. Yeah, figs will actually grow even in North Carolina and Tennessee. They tend to freeze down, but they grow on the new wood, and you get a later harvest. First time I ever had a fresh fig was actually in North Carolina at my Aunt Karen's place. And I said, man, these things are really good. No, the Russian is more like this. I used to have a Russian roommate at one point, and he would drink an entire malt 40 and eat a big slab of salt fish, and then he would want to argue philosophy. It was hilarious. Derek says, darn near everyone you meet that thinks they know Florida gardening say you can't grow any vegetables in the summer heat. LOL, yeah, right. Yeah, I know. They'll say, oh, there's only 2 growing seasons in Florida, in spring and fall. Now, that's a truism. It's generally true. Now, if you're further south in the state, you have winter as well. You get to the summer heat, no, you can't grow anything. Well, that's why I started experimenting. When I wrote Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening, I wrote it after experimenting with a lot of plants and figuring out what would take the summer heat as well as the cold. So in the cold time, I was growing cabbages and kale and turnips and daikon radishes. I always had great salads through the fall and particularly the winter and spring. Then once we got past the spring and things got too hot, I would grow plants that originated in hot climates, like hot, humid climates, like Asian vegetables, the yard-long beans, Mexican tree spinach, jicama, cassava. Those just would thrive right through the summer. I also found that black-eyed peas would grow right through. I could get another crop. So did mung beans. So even if I wasn't gardening actively in a bed, I might throw down black-eyed peas or mung beans to cover the ground and act as a green manure during the really hot part of the year, so it wasn't bare ground being baked, and it kept it alive, and more alive even than mulching it would. So, yeah, you can do it. Raven says, we have a seedling peach right now. Where did I find it? I just lost it. We have a seedling peach tree growing right now from our mother peach tree that makes fruit like crazy. Yeah, I grew dozens of seedling peaches, which is another thing you're not supposed to do. And I had tons of fruit. We didn't get one peach tree with bad fruit. I gave away quite a few. I sold some. I traded some. And I went and visited 4 of those peach trees a few years after I had given them to a friend, and all of them made good fruit. The fruit was variable. Some of them were a little small. Some of them were nice and big. One of them was small and red, but it was still delicious. They were all good. You know, they were all good. And they grew like crazy as seedlings in the ground. Now, yeah, I mean, they'll say don't grow seedlings. It's not commercially viable because you don't exactly know what you're going to get. And it's not going to be consistent size. Well, who cares? It's your backyard peach tree. You know, grow a bunch of them. It doesn't cost you anything. You get to start a bunch of pits, put them in the ground. You can prune them small. You can get peaches growing from a tree that's only like 6 foot tall and have peaches all over it if you prune it properly. So you can almost grow them like shrubs. It's incredible. Jerry Paul says, the tag on our Hascap says right on it, do not propagate, LOL. Oh yeah, I'm propagating that thing. Yeah, Jerry, with the patented varieties, there's like a 15-year window on a patented variety, and it's not like the patent police are going to show up at your house and go after you. It's more that they don't want nurseries and commercial operations taking something that they spent a lot of research and development time into creating. Like, you're not supposed to do it, but you know, it's the nurseries that they're looking at. They don't want them to take the result of a 10-year breeding scheme and then make 1,000 of them and start selling it for nothing. So, Flyover Pilgrim says, the only expert about my property is me. You're right, because you have observed, you've lived on it, you've grown, you can figure out what does better in your yard than anything else. Raven says, experimenters have invented everything we consider normal now. Yeah, I agree. We wouldn't be able to do this YouTube live thing if it hadn't been for people experimenting. Redboss Farm says, David the Good, how hard is it to propagate mazards from cuttings? I'm getting 10 on Friday. I'm debating on keeping a couple ungrafted. I'm not sure. I have never tried, but I would probably go with semi-hardwood cuttings and make sure that you have a humidity tent. If they're dormant right now, that's not a bad time to stick cuttings. Unsilent J says, do you have to graft fruit trees? No, you don't. Grafting can speed up the fruit production. If you graft from a mature tree onto a seedling, the tree thinks that it's a grown up and it will produce faster. You also get exactly the fruit from whatever tree you take a branch from and stick it on there. You will get exactly the same as the mother tree. Seedlings will still produce fruit. Almost always they'll produce fruit unless you have a dioecious species, which means there's male and female, and if you get a male you may not get fruit, but in that case just graft onto it then. But a lot of seedlings will actually make good fruit, and they tend to be stronger and more vigorous than grafted trees, particularly grafted trees that are on dwarfing rootstock. Bella's Patio Garden said, I did some experiments in my community plot last year, and a neighbor noted that definitely makes me a gardener. Yeah, you gotta play around. It's fun. Let's see here. Ed Bradley said, if you grew an apple tree for a seedling and it flopped, graft the type you want to it. Yeah, use the rootstock. Just graft right on top of it. You got it. Our gentleman says, old Italian guys grow figs in Pittsburgh. They wrap them in foam mattresses in the winter. That's brilliant. I love that. I'd love a picture of that. Bella's Patio Garden says, oh, I'm going to lose it here. Any container recommendations for thermal mass in a small 4x4 greenhouse? You could probably use some 5-gallon buckets. Stick some 5-gallon buckets, stack a couple of them in the corners, one down here, another one up here, put a shelf on top of it, that'll help. Yeah, okra. Okra's another one. That's a good point on Silent J. Okra loves the heat too. They'll go right through. Yeah, cowpeas. That's what I was calling black-eyed peas. Peppers love the heat. I found that the hot peppers do well, but the bell peppers did badly for me in the summer. They tended to decline and get rot. Yes, planting in afternoon shade is a good idea. A good hot summer lettuce is Jewels of Opar. Yeah, they did well. So did Gynura procumbens, longevity spinach did well for me right through. And Suriname purslane did pretty well, but it tended to kind of drop off a little bit if it got dry. Rick says, I have a large round bed under a big mimosa tree. It gets just enough sun. That's good. A little bit, you know, sun in a hot climate like in South Florida or in Florida is not the same as full sun up north. So, oh, Alan, hey, nice to see you. Dixie Leaving Homestead says perennial rhubarb zone 8, iffy, maybe. I have a friend in North Florida who was growing rhubarb in his backyard. I don't know that he ever really got big rhubarb out of it, though. Malabar spinach love the heat. Yeah, I had problems with Malabar spinach just not wanting to thrive. They seem to get sunburned, but then down here I see them all the time and they grow great. Kinjo says Gynura bicolor, aka Okinawan spinach, does good in Florida. Yeah. No, the Suriname purslane, Jewels of Opar, Suriname purslane is Talinum fruticosum. Jewels of Opar is another Talinum. It's the one that makes the little tiny, like a spray of, they look like little pearls over the top of it. And it has smaller leaves than the Suriname purslane. Ed Bradley says, should I sue or compost my neighbor for spraying for mosquitoes? No, probably not. Mosquitoes are actually one of the most dangerous creatures on the entire planet by deaths. But I would tell him, if you're going to spray for mosquitoes, would you please spray at dusk, after the bees and the pollinators and most of the daytime pollination crew has gone home. That would be a compromise. I mean, I wouldn't spray for mosquitoes, but I understand why people do, and I would see if you can get them to spray after dusk. Hey Eric, nice to see you here. Yeah, Egyptian spinach is supposed to do well. I haven't tried it either. Yeah, they do kill bees, right? Yeah, so go for see if you can get them in the evening, and that's what the beekeepers tell me. Look, if they spray at dusk, it doesn't kill my bees. If they spray during the day, it will kill my bees. It's time to start singing the comments. We're over an hour now. My MVP is green wave mustard greens. All the Florida heat they never went to seed. Planted in May of 2018. It's still going, cut and come again. But sooner does fine too. Deep paniculum, that's Jewels of Opar, Talinum paniculum. I went to see David. All mosquitoes disappeared. The ecosystem would collapse. Was a person looking for low-quad seedlings. Jasmine is dancing. Yeah, the town here sprays that dust in summer. I spread BT bits around the yard. Maybe you can convince your neighbor to use BT instead. My CH cat is on my lap and I can't type. David the Good. Hey, Scoop. I'm dancing in my chair. I wanna rock. Much respect and big thanks for what you're doing. Do you think growing bamboo would help with cooling down and warming up, just like the thermos? I got an acre with full green. Okay, I'm kind of a little lost on that one. Love the guitar time. I juggle jackfruit in my dreams. Mangoes are awesome. Wishing it was warm enough to grow. Still hitting single digits at night. My big wheels are rolling. Chicken in every pot. New cars in every garage. That dream died under a fierce barrage. No going back from the robot economy. Supercalifragilistic. Expialidocious. Enjoying some spaghetti squash from last year's garden. Yum, yum. Nathaniel says my peach fruits are falling off from the cold. Sorry. Push the zone. Push the zone. So, you guys, if you want to come and see me in North Florida, Gainesville, that is on the 19th at 5:30, just north of Gainesville. There is a link in the description. It's $25 per person, which should pay for my, should be able to pay for my travel. I'm hoping to pay for the travel and pay for my new camera, which I'm going to get. I'm going to record some things. I'm going to be recording across the state and getting some good info and talking to some experts. And, you know, so North Florida gardening workshop in Gainesville. There's a link in the description. You can sign up now. And I also have a South Florida food forest workshop in the food forest that I built. And, you know, my mom has graciously allowed us to use her backyard for that, but parking is limited. We've got probably close to, at this point, we have at least 40 people coming, so it's getting, I might have to cut it off before too long. I don't know if the neighborhood will support it. And I think the police may get called if there are, you know, 40 compost your enemy shirts all in one place. But that would be like the most epic thing ever. So I may just not cut it off. And we could start a riot or something and film it. It would probably make my channel explode. So yeah, that would be kind of awesome. I mean, would it be great? Like a shot. I'm like getting hauled off, you know, by the cops, and you know, people are pelting the cops with chocolate pudding fruit, and you know, I mean, that would be great for my channel. I would have total street cred then, and yeah, that would be awesome. Get like a, you know, get a tattoo while I'm in prison. I'll be like, put a cassava leaf right here, and the guy's like, I was like, that guy's got a cassava leaf. You put a cassava leaf just like that guy's. Put it right there, right on my arm. Look at all these guys. Look at all these guys. Like, everybody here has a cassava leaf tattoo. Give me one of those. I want one of those cassava leaf tattoos. You know, and then I come out and people are like, so yeah, something to strive for. You guys will love my mom. My mom is an introvert, and she is a really good woman. Volunteers and all kinds of stuff. And I'm kind of an overwhelming personality for her. She was very good to homeschool me all the way through, and I'm sure I was an insane handful. But yeah, you guys you'll love her. She's great. Probably a couple of my sisters will be there too. So, yeah. Yes, Austin says everyone could film it vertically. Look at my dream is to be filmed in a street fight, maybe at a plant nursery, maybe at Epcot, maybe like being beaten by cops and like seeds and plant cuttings are like falling out of my clothing and they're beating me on the ground, and it's all in vertical footage and it's posted to World Star Hip Hop. That would be like, oh yeah. Ed says we homeschooled both our kids. Yeah, homeschool or die. So yeah, thank you. Hardy Vark, that's Aardvark Screen Printing. He prints my Compost Your Enemy shirt. So go get a Compost Your Enemy shirt. He told me today that the Compost Your Enemy shirt has done very well. The Survival Gardener Green Thumb shirt has not done that well. Aardvark, if you could post a link to your site, that would be good. The vegan compost shirt has done well. The Bafima shirt has not done well, even though it's 3D and it comes with 3D glasses. No, I think that one's too weird. I think that's just too weird for people. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand why I want a screaming plastic dinosaur on my shirt. It's kind of blurry. Yes. So, actually, I've got some good friends all over Florida, so I'm going to be traveling all over the place. There's a couple of people are going to have me to do like consultations in their yards and look at their food forests and stuff, which would be cool. I'm going to be in Fort Lauderdale for actually a few days, so I am taking a couple of consultation gigs, but there's people like here and there about the state. I just can't make it everywhere because I'm borrowing rides, you know. So Rick O'Brien says homeschool bakes in the weird in kids. All my weird kids were homeschooled. Yeah, because they think differently. That's the way kids are supposed to be. I think, you know, a little, they get outside of the you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. You know, there's I mean, even in my nursery book, I recommend if you can hire homeschooling teenagers or homeschool kids that are looking for jobs. In my experience, they do very well. Now, there are kids that are homeschooled because they have special needs or they're very disruptive, or, you know, it's the parents are not good or whatever, and that happens. But there are a lot of bad teachers in the public school system too. Like my wife said she would never, ever, ever send the kids to public school after the horrible experiences she had. She says it's just like like a war zone where she was. So, you know. Deanna says, do the Compost Your Enemy shirts come in children's sizes? That's a good question. That's a dark turn. You know what's happened is actually a few people have now ripped off the Compost Your Enemies thing, and they've posted it, like somebody put a version of it on Amazon that is not me, and somebody else knocked it off and put it somewhere else. So here's the Compost Your Enemies shirt, and it comes down to small, but if you wrote Aardvark Screen Printing, they probably could make them. It's just crazy. Deanna says, 2 of my 4 children have autism and all my kids are homeschooled. Good for you. Good for you, because the other kids will really, if a kid acts differently, they'll get the tar beaten out of them by the system and by other children. It's a bad deal. So, okay, Aardvark says we can do kids shirts. So yes, you can get kids compost your enemy shirts. It's so dark. And I just put there's a link right there to this. He just posted a link to the complete Survival Gardener t-shirt collection. So Steven says, I have a 45-foot by 90-foot lot, all fill dirt. What can I do to salvage this aside from wood chips, coffee grounds, and composted yard waste and food scraps? What else can I add that's free? Cover crops. Cover crops. Go and get yourself a bunch of beans of various varieties from the bulk bins at the grocery store. You can put in some rye, some wheat, some buckwheat. You can stick in cuttings from nitrogen fixing trees or nutrient accumulating trees. Just get a lot of life on the soil first, and it will start to, you can chop and drop and put things in place and turn it under when you build beds. It will make a big difference. You can do some cool stuff with covering the ground, but if you can get a bunch of life growing on top of it, that will help a lot to begin with if you don't have enough mulch to go. So Ray Boss Farm says, do you chit your beans? Yeah, if I'm going to scatter them around, chitting means to you soak them until they're just about to germinate. If I'm going to spread them around an area as a cover crop, yes, I will soak them and throw them on top of the ground and then just cover with a little bit of grass clippings or straw or whatever. So Austin says, I think my Compost Your Enemy shirt was a children's large, way too small for me. It's probably a mistake. If you need another one, drop me an email. I don't know what happened there. Sasquatch Saga says, 2 years ago my soil was lifeless. Now after wood chips, it is full of worms. Yeah, it makes a huge difference between the worms and the fungi. The fungi really brings the soil to life. It's constantly moving and digesting and changing things and transporting nutrients from here to there and making soil. And then you get all of the micro life that's in there, and then you get the beetles and you get the worms and you get all kinds of things tunneling and moving through there and making life. Yes, I would recommend Tithonia diversifolia as a chop and drop. Absolutely. Now, I was just talking to, this is cool. I'm going to film my old North Florida food forest, which I have not seen in three years, just over 3 years. The current owner has kept all my fruit trees and everything, and we are going to do. I'm going to get a few friends. We're going to do a little work day up there and do some cleanup for her, and do some weeding and some chop and drop. And I am going to film my old food forest. It's like awesome because now this food forest is like 9 years old since it started. So, it's awesome. I am so psyched. She's like, oh yeah, absolutely, come on over, let's do it. So we're going to go see what's going. She says there's fruit on everything. So hopefully these frost events that are happening right now in North Florida don't take it out. So yeah, that's going to be so cool. I'm psyched about that. So I'll do a big video. I might be able to get an hour-long video out of that one, A 9-year-old. I can't even believe it's been that long. It's been a long time. Crazy. You guys have a, I know. Austin probably wants big wheels. Let's see here. I gotta find it. Let us see if I can find this. Let's see what we can find. I'm thinking, let me see what we can find. Yeah. Questions here. I'm finding chords. I'll see you tomorrow, Carolyn. Thank you very much for volunteering to host the North Florida gardening event. It's going to be great. Let's see. Oh, I've got to find it. Gotta look through all these chords. I'm thinking it's not called Big Wheels. Big Wheels Keep on Turning. That is not the name of it. It's Proud Mary, I think, is the name of it. Yeah. I'm just going to keep hitting that because I think it's in there. Let's see here. See if we could get, there you go. Yep, Proud Mary. Right. We'll play it like the Cars. That's not obnoxious, is it? Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. Never lost a minute of sleeping, worried about the way things might have been. Big wheels keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. No, that's not right. I left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. And I never lost a minute of sleep, worrying about the way things might have been. Big wheel keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. That's it. There's like another thing in there. There we go, something like that. Clean a lot of plates in Memphis, pump a lot of pain now in New Orleans. But I never saw the good side of a city till I hitched a ride on a riverboat queen. Big wheels keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. There needs to be a harmonica solo in there or something, doesn't there? Oh, man. Yeah, any chance we can bribe you to sing the sandwich song? About life and love, but baby, oh, I can't remember it. Proud Mary, angry like. Yeah, I mean, Proud Mary. That could Proud Mary could probably it'd probably be a '90s alternative song, right? Obviously, drop D. Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day, and I never lost a minute of sleeping, worrying about the way things might have been. Big wheels keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. It would work. You can basically do any song that way. It's gonna be really good. No, YouTube nailed me on like a set of songs. And Alan says, has YouTube been charging you for these songs? They nailed me on a couple of ones, and they took some of my revenue away, but, well, whatever. Our gentleman says, I went to college with Rick Ocasek's son. Nice. I'm going to have to do that. Oh, Aardvark says, kids' compost shirts are up. So if you look up... Wow, that was fast. Thank you. Get up in the morning time, making biscuits. Get up in the morning time, in the middle of the day, biscuits. Oh, you know what I was doing the other day? I'm trying to think of which song I was singing. I think I was singing maybe the Pony Ride as Bob Dylan. Yeah. It's never too old for a pony ride. Pony ride. Never too old for a pony ride. You're kinda like a horse, but they're smaller. I mean, I don't know what Gen X thinks about the boomer music. I do know what we think about it. I mean, we had lousy music, but I don't know how anyone could listen to this for any kind of period of time and then say he's some sort of a thing. It's the voice of a generation. A voice of a generation. No. No, I'm not going to do it. Barbie Girl. Oh, my goodness. You sing Barbie Girl. Hello, Bobby. Let's go potty. Oh. The government. Oh my goodness. Barbie Girl. Okay, let's see. All right, we'll try it. We will try Barbie Girl. My goodness. You know that song is completely inappropriate. There are children watching. I'm going to have to edit as I go. Oh, yes. I had a friend of mine I used to work in a radio studio with, and he would say, "This is my theme song," and he'd start playing it really loud. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. I'm fantastic. It's fantastic. Brush my hair and touch me anywhere. Imagination, life is your creation. I'm a blind bimbo girl, fancy work. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Why'd she sing it? I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life is fantastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, garden anywhere. Imagination, life is your creation. Come on, Bobby, let's go party. Oh my goodness. No, Willie Nelson. I'm a Barbie girl. Boy, that's rough. Like Tom Waits or Leonard Cohen. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life is plastic. It's fantastic. You can brush my hair. Let me anywhere. It's imagination. Or you do like Captain Beefheart. I always thought it would be kind of fun to get up to perform a set and then start singing as Captain Beefheart. Oh my goodness. Oh, Barbie Girl done by Tiny Tim. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life is plastic, it's fantastic. Can brush my hair, take me gardening. Imagination, life is your creation. You hear like his voice cracks, and you're like, "Whoa, that is so weird." Oh, Beefheart and Java. I used to have the double album of Captain Beefheart because I thought I was cool. Tiny Tim. Poor Tiny Tim. He died. But I felt worse about the really huge guy, Israel. I can't remember his last name, who did that beautiful cover of What a Wonderful World, but he was like 8,000 pounds and then he died. I was like, wow. I mean, if he had only been like 7,800 pounds less, I mean, his voice was wonderful, really nice. He seemed like a really nice guy, and it was probably some sort of a gland condition or something, but, oh, what a beautiful rendition. Darth Vader does Barbie. You guys.
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world.
Did you guys ever see the Vader sessions where somebody took all of the other James Earl Jones songs, not songs, other James Earl Jones clips from movies and overdubbed all of Darth Vader's dialogue? So he's like, he goes out and he looks at the Millennium Falcon after they captured it, and he's like, baseball. It's about baseball. I mean, some of the overdubs are just hilarious. He's like having a lightsaber battle. He's having a lightsaber battle with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan's like, you can't win, Darth. And he's like, finally, you understand how it feels to be black. Oh my gosh, I just about died laughing. All these James Earl Jones pieces. Oh my goodness. All right, so David, do you still grow black velvet beans, and do you feel that they provide you a benefit? Yeah, the black velvet beans they do. They definitely make you feel more upbeat and chill kind of at the same time. They're pretty cool. That I have not been able to get the utilitarian variety. There's Mucuna pruriens variety utilis, and utilis is the type without all the stinging hairs. The type with the regular stinging hairs, the Mucuna pruriens, grows wild here. They call it madness bean. It's got all kinds of names that are not. It's not good. Cowich bean. I don't want to mess with that one at all. I'm still looking for the utility variety of it. So. Yeah, the Cops parody with Stormtroopers is a favorite. Now that I actually have teenage children at this point. Isn't that crazy? I have discovered more Star Wars parodies than I ever knew existed. And I knew the Cops, I like the small town feel. It's, you really feel like you're making a difference. Stormtroopers, I love it. But Rayboth Farm says 29 eggs today. That's great. Oh, you guys, you want to see one that's hilarious? Just a second. I'm going to send you guys one right now. Because who cares, right? We are way past useful territory at this point. So we are just on into... Yeah, I'm gonna send this one to you. This is the bad lip reading version. This is the best remix of anything that I've ever seen in history. This one, oh my gosh. Anyhow, good work. 29 eggs and in the winter. So, all right, guys. We got anything else before we call it an evening? Woo! Stephen Water says, the solution to a lot of problems is to be less people. I don't think getting rid of people is a good plan, if that's what you mean. Some people. I mean, obviously, some people I'd like to get rid of, but... All right, yeah, compost police. Good idea. That gives me some focus. We will sing compost police. That is applicable. I'm going to find where I stuck the... I use LibreOffice to write all my books on. It is the best. It is better than Microsoft Word. Way better, and it is free. It's like Microsoft Office when Microsoft Office was actually good. All right, here we go.
Compost police, arrest this man, he composts meat. He empties out his fridge, I think he added some bread too. Compost police, arrest this girl, her compost tea. It's making me feel ill, and I know it's gone anaerobic. Better check your list. The big rules list that makes it tough for composters. Compost police, I need to feed my land, it's not enough. Wanna compost all I can, but you want to feed landfills. If it's off the list, if it's off the list, if it's off the list, to the landfill with it. For a minute there, I looked outside, the leaves outside. For a minute there, I thought I could compost everything. For a minute there, I lost my list. I lost my list. For a minute there, I lost the list. I could compost this.
Arrest this man, he pees in the compost. That's good. Kathy says, David, is it okay to plant veggies next to the house after a termite spray? It depends on what they sprayed. Some stuff goes away. Some of it is nicotinoids, which are not really that big a deal. Other things, I would find out what was sprayed. Some things just are not a big deal. I mean, they seem like they'd be terrible, but they're not necessarily. Steve says, any advice on pruning pineapple guava? It is in a container about 3 foot tall at the moment. You know, they grow very slowly, and I've seen them pruned as hedges and producing, so you can get away with a lot. I would just make sure that you prune probably in the summer if you want to prune to size and shape after it's already done its fruiting, and you know, a little later in the year, but not so late in the year that it's going to put out new growth before frost. Yeah, Office 97. I used to have Word 2000. I used that for my first few books. I kept that program forever until I couldn't get it to work anymore. Yes, if you need image software, GIMP is also great and free. It is, but I am tied to the Adobe world, unfortunately. My kids use GIMP. Railbot Farm says, I normally run all Linux, have for over a decade. Yeah, you know, I like the concept of Linux, but because I do a lot of audio production and video production and graphic design work, and I've done media work for years, I can't mesh it. I had a Linux laptop that I used for my writing laptop for a while. I had a Dell that was loaded with, that was a PC Linux OS. And a friend of mine liked that one, so he loaded it up for me, and I just used that for a while. But no, I'm on Mac. I'm in the Mac world, as much as Mac is not advancing properly, and they are like a walled garden mentality. But man, I love my Final Cut and Pro Tools. So the whole world is a compost. Check out a band called Clinic. All right. A video of all my songs. My goodness, that would be crazy. I have written over 100 songs. I just, quite a few of them I haven't posted. Yeah, your papers, please. Sorry, I composted. That's good. All right, guys. I will catch up with you next time. Be sure to check out the, if you can come to the Food Forest workshop in South Florida on the 16th of March, come and do that. If you can come on the 19th to Gainesville, check that out. The links are in the description. The other thing I want to make sure you guys sign up for, if you are interested, is the Homegrown Food Summit 2019, because I have 2 presentations. If you can't see me in person, that's the next best thing. I've got 2 long demonstrations, one on lasagna gardening and one on seed starting and growing fruit trees from seed. So check those out. There's a link in the description to sign up. If you sign up, you can watch the videos for free along with a bunch of other people, and then you'll get some spam emails, and then you can unsubscribe later if you want, or you can just buy the whole set of presentations and things, because there's some really good people in there. And like Marjorie Wildcraft is putting this one on, so she actually posts a lot of good stuff. I am subscribed to her newsletter. Some people don't like to subscribe to newsletters, but she has some good stuff in there, and I don't just say that because she has me writing. I do write for the Grow Network. I'm surprised by some of the stuff. They have some really good people in there. Scott Sexton wrote a really good post a few weeks ago. Maybe it was longer than that. It was on hackberries for food. I was like, I didn't even know that there was any use to hackberries other than they're like slightly edible, but he had all kinds of info on it. It was very cool. So you can sign up for the Homegrown Food Summit, and that is going to be good. I've got those 2 presentations, and hopefully I will see some of you guys in person in Fort Lauderdale or Gainesville. And I also have a link to the audiobook version of Push the Zone below. My publisher is now offering the Push the Zone audiobook and the ebook together. It's a Push the Zone audiobook plus, and they are putting both of them together, and it's $9.99 for the audiobook and the EPUB version of it, the Kindle and EPUB version. Or you can just get it on Amazon. I have a link to the Amazon version of it too in paperback. So I will catch up with you guys very soon, and by very soon I mean tomorrow night. So thanks for watching and hanging around. I stayed on much longer than I thought I did, but hey, we're having fun. Catch you guys later, and hope to see you in the future.